everyone. We're here today with Conversations with Susanne. I'm here with Brian Smuck, neurological chiropractor, actually, and regular chiropractor as well. And we are going to talk about today the consequences or the effects of the social isolation that we've just been through. So far, yeah, that we've been through so far. Hopefully not again. But these lockdowns and what the effect they've had on us. So, Brian, what are you seeing in terms of the physical? Let's start with the physical side. So, what are you seeing in terms of the physical?
The big two that I see is just the general lack of movement from so much sitting from people who are now working from home. And it's interesting because now that they're working from home, they're sitting at their desks for 4, 5, 6 hours and not even getting up. It's interesting because we used to talk, people would say when they're at their office, they would talk about all these distractions. Oh, I have to get up and go to the coffee, or I have to get up and get a coffee. I have to do, people come and talk to me at my desk, and then I have to leave my workflow. Well, all of those things kind of prevented what we're seeing now, because now you're getting people who are just locked in, and over the day they just become almost one with their workspace instead of moving and having to actually get up and move a little bit.
So posture is a huge consequence, poor posture, and then everything that goes with it. So in terms of what are the consequences then of that crouched position?
As we get into that, in that forward slump, you've got that forward head position. That's going to lead to all kinds of jaw, neck, shoulder, arm, just almost anything through there. Everybody's a little bit different, but it's almost anything along that line. That's probably number one. Number two, without that lack of movement, people are gaining weight. The ones that weren't regularly exercising before, most of those people are still kind of doing something. But the ones that weren't regular exercisers, now they're stuck even with less activity. And you can see the weight gain starting, and just, and there's some poor food choices as well. Maybe people just don't want to go to the supermarket.
Yeah, there's not wanting to go out shopping. There's buying convenience food. There's ordering in or taking out unhealthy options. I mean, almost everything that we eat out has vegetable oils in them, which are really toxic. It's a big pet peeve for me. I was so mad at the beginning of COVID when even the government suggested, okay, go out and fill your freezer with boxed pizza, buy bulk, buy cheap, unhealthy things. Really, what are they, they're just trying to cost us more money, the government, and healthcare. And sitting definitely, it's interesting because my kids purchased me this watch, and so when I'm sitting at the computer writing my new book, I'm realizing it's saying, oh, it's time to get up, and I look at my watch and I go, oh, I've been sitting here for 2 hours. What the heck? I didn't realize that. So that's a big one. And I'm certainly seeing a lot of people with coming for massage with shoulder issues, neck issues, what have you. So solutions, obviously, we could say yoga, right? And stretching and movement.
For the person working from home, number one is set an alarm. Set a move, if you want to call it a movement alarm, but just an alarm to make you do something other than sit there.
Yeah, a few stretches.
Even if it's just 2 minutes. It doesn't have to be a 10-minute break or an hour. You don't have to go for a 10K walk. It's just get up and move. Even if you just move and jump around, shake a little bit, stretch a little bit, get up tall, do something, walk to the kitchen.
Yeah.
Don't eat anything, walk to the kitchen.
Well, and I always have people stand against the wall just to, check your posture. Just stand against the wall and see, how are you, and are you like this, or can your shoulder blades and your sacrum actually go against the wall? So that's a good one as well. How about what are you seeing physically in terms of the brain and in terms of mental capacity? I'm not talking anxiety, depression, but just more is there a consequence to so much screen time?
Absolutely. With all of that screen time, there's actually there's kind of a new buzzword just kind of starting, and it's actually based on this virtual or computer-based, we'll call it concussion. Even though there's no physical trauma, but it's this sensory overload that's actually driving the brain to beyond fatigue, to almost that damaged position that you get with concussions. So with the screen time, you've got this overload of the light, the information, and then and also a lack of movement. So your circulation's already down a little bit, and now you're just kind of driving all of that in through your eyes all day long. Boom, 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 boom. It's just hitting you.
So I'm going to go back 1 second. What about those desks that actually, like standing desks? Do you recommend those?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Or,
even if it's just to change positions for a little while, you don't have to stay there all day. So standing desks, or Theraball, big rubber ball, instead of a desk chair. Again, you don't have to stay there all day, but it's great for a change of pace. There used to be, they're not so common now, but there was the kneeling chair. You used to see those a little bit more before. I think maybe they'll have a little comeback now, I don't know. But the kneeling chair, again, it's just that change in position. Keep your body kind of guessing a little bit. Because when you're on, like we're on these hard chairs now, when you're on a nice stable surface, it's nice because it's comfortable, but neurologically, the little support muscles up and down your spine, they know everything is stable. We're not going anywhere. We're not going to fall over, so let's take a nap.
Okay.
And they go to sleep, and it gets harder to sit up tall because those little muscles are saying, well, we don't really need to do anything right now.
Right.
Jump on a ball and sit, and you have that little bit of instability. Those little muscles have to stay active.
Right. I talk about that a lot in yoga class, the multifidus muscles, right? That they turn to fat when you don't use them. And then you and I have seen clients who have actually compression of the spine, and that's what it's due to, inactivity and not using those muscles anymore. So we want to keep moving. We want to strengthen those muscles by adding some different textures or different movements to our day. Is there anything else you can think of, or any other consequences of the physical? I kind of interrupted you on the brain thing too. Was there anything else there?
I think those are the highlights, really. The real question is, what do we do with it? And the big one is getting, if you need to, set an alarm, get regular movement in through the day.
Yeah.
Instead of getting stuck for hours and hours and hours.
Okay, and you did bring up at the beginning weight gain, and this is also something that I'm seeing a lot of, and people are getting to that point where the weight gain is transferring into actual medical conditions. Like, now I've got high cholesterol and high blood pressure. Now I'm taking medication, and diabetes is setting in. So any advice or comments on that? What could people start to do?
Wow.
That's a big topic.
I think number one is get control of your kitchen and try to, as best you can, get away from anything that's already prepared for you.
Yes.
Which is kind of funny, as we have more, most of us seem to have more and more time, and then we say, oh, I don't have time to cook.
Yeah. I think people are having cooking fatigue now.
It could be.
At the beginning, everybody was like, yeah, homemade, and I'm doing so great. And then now, even myself, I'm always searching new recipes, luckily, because it's what I'm doing in terms of writing my book. But I'm finding like people are like really excited when I post something new, because they're going, yeah, like I need something new and easy that's different. I think we're having fatigue there. We tend to eat the same foods all the time as well. And we tend not to eat as much vegetables, especially in the winter. So I'm feeling like spring out. And so what we really need to be doing is changing our diet to a lot of lighter, get back into the salads again, do some nice lighter soups instead of heavy stews, like cream of asparagus. Well, that's not really light, but maybe, a natural creamy type of asparagus soup, or use almond milk instead of dairy. And lighter foods and then what do you think about this intermittent fasting as well as a way to control what you're doing? Like, because I think weight gain happens a lot when people eat at night when they're watching TV.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Again, the intermittent fasting, or IF as we call it, there's lots and lots of variants of that. Somehow not eating at night became its own little name of intermittent fasting, because you're not eating after 7 o'clock.
Right.
Why don't we just say, don't eat after dinner?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like we used to, nothing after 6 or 7, whenever dinner time was. Especially anything with an amount of sugar, and that includes fruit, because when you have that, it turns off growth hormone for the night. And no matter how old you are, you do have some amount of growth hormone that really needs to be secreted overnight, because that's where a lot of our repair comes from, right? You're not growing new and getting taller, but you're regrowing all the tissues that need to keep constantly growing and regrowing. They're always being repaired, replaced, and turned over. And growth hormone is part of that process. Growth hormone reduces quite a bit as we get older, no question. By older, I mean you're outside of puberty. Like once you're 25, growth hormone starts to go down quite significantly. But we still have that amount there for, rest and repair. And we lose that. It actually turns off when blood sugar goes up and insulin spike happens, and it prevents that from happening overnight. That's one of the big values in sleep, is that growth hormone production and other neurochemistry changes too. And a lot of that gets shut down or significantly reduced with those higher blood sugar, higher insulin levels as well.
So people who eat late at night, they're going to have less growth hormone. Like they might still be in, because I know a lot of people who intermittent fast.
Yeah.
They'll eat supper 7, 8 o'clock,
yeah.
but then they don't eat again until noon the next day.
Yeah.
So they're doing the intermittent fasting, but they're also eating late at night.
Yeah.
It's so the growth hormone is still.
You don't want it too close. You don't want it within 4 or 5 hours of going to sleep.
Okay. So
because there are certain, once sleep starts, there are certain timed triggers that happen over that 4, 5, 6 hour piece of sleep. Or longer, you can sleep longer. But the neurochemistry pieces happen in those first 1, 2, and 3 hours they start to produce.
Right.
And then they run their distance.
We're learning a lot about, and we'll talk about this in a future episode, but we're learning a lot about how sleep affects so many aspects of our life, right? But going back, so that just one more thing about going back to the physical side is, so I've been focusing a lot on myofascial release in my yoga classes, making sure that the poses that I'm doing, that we're doing that kind of release, doing some therapy work, because there's a lot of new studies out there saying that myofascial tightness, connective tissue is what we're talking about, that surrounds all your muscles. If you're really tight, that can actually lead to heart disease and cancer. There's a new study that just came out recently that's like, it was like, wow, okay, this is not only affecting our range of motion, but this is affecting our general health and is a precursor to cancer. So comments on connective tissue. I'm seeing it a lot. Like and I'm feeling it myself, because when I set, I just feel like I need to go and use that therapy ball and get rid of all of that. So.
Yeah, though I'm seeing that in people who are, not avid exercisers, but are starting to get, now the weather's changing a little bit, they're starting to get out, but they're only doing a kilometer or 2 or 3, but they say, wow, afterwards I feel it the next, a few hours later or the next day, hips into the top of the legs, those big muscles and around the big joints that should be, they should limber up pretty well, but it's that whole connective tissue, the tightening down, the binding of it that's happening. It's not just the pure muscle piece that we're talking about.
So work your connective tissue. Get even like self massage, right? Use that. I use rubber balls, and we work the connective tissue.
And again, lighter foods, good oils, those sorts of things. Yeah. Again, think of that light oil as the lube you need in there. You wouldn't drag on the skin without some kind of massage oil. It's the same thing in those connective tissues. They need some of those normal oils in there for those layers to slide on top of each other.
But what's really interesting is, your connective tissue is in a very organized pattern if it's healthy, but as it becomes unhealthy or tight, it comes into all this kind of crazy, sort of like a white cotton sheet or maybe even cotton candy. And so therefore you can kind of see how then, like when it's an organized, like a diamond shape like this, it's just going to open up, right? But when it's in that crazy pattern, it doesn't even know where to go, right? So so I found that really interesting. What else do we need to say?
Going back to cooking, you said at the start of this whole thing in March or April, the thing that I noticed with people cooking, they seem to go to comfort foods, support, comfort, stability, because there's a lot of fear. Yeah. And the other thing that seemed to come up was that, especially if you watched what was coming out in the popular press in terms of cooking, a lot of it was getting complex. And I think that's where a lot of that cooking fatigue started to come in, because now people initially thought, this is great, I'm going to spend 2 or 3 hours in the kitchen. Well, that's just not sustainable for most of us, especially as people got back to work, back to more normal activities, it's hard to keep that kind of thing up. So
Yes,
it's time to, what can we do in the kitchen that's, simple?
right. Simple, quick recipes that are healthy. Also, what I noticed is that, and my friends all admitted to this, like they were just baking like crazy, making, cookies every day, filling their freezer with baked goods, and it's all white sugar, white flour, which also, that goes and basically toxins to the body, and the stars and the, like you say, on social media, I was getting so mad because they were all posting these really decadent, comforting, but so bad for you foods. And I was like, people, this is not the message that we want to get across. And the other thing that was really coming through a lot, and you're kind of hearing a little less of it now, because I think even the Cancer Society came out and said, let's have, February was actually dry February, because they were saying people are drinking alcohol too much. And so, and alcohol just puts weight on like crazy.
Mm-hmm.
It's a toxin, people. And it's full of sugar mostly. So, that became a huge, and then you mix the alcohol with the food. When you drink alcohol with food, it actually increases the amount of your calories that you're consuming. And the blood sugar is going up, and then you're trying to sleep at night, and alcohol interrupts their sleep patterns, although some people use it as a way to get to sleep. You usually don't have a deep sleep or stay asleep. Mm-hmm. So the whole alcohol food, comfort food thing, it became a huge problem, I think, for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's I think that's a societal issue for sure. Mm-hmm. When you look at some of the hierarchies that started to show up in March or April last year, you had very early, there was a lot of unknown, a lot of fear for sure, but you had, orthopedists sent home from hospitals because, we're not doing that now. Mm-hmm. It's too dangerous. You go home. Outside of the COVID wings, that's really what was all in emergency wards. That was all that was left open, right? Send home all the other doctors, blanketly close all of the regular health practitioners, massage therapists, chiropractors, physios, et cetera, dentists.
Right.
How much do people actually need those? Mm-hmm. Hopefully a lot.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, they need them a lot.
They need them, and at the same time, we were all classed as, and I'd say we, meaning all of us regular health practitioners, we were all classed as like that non-essential. You can close, and there's the liquor store open because it is front and center. And
yes.
I find that very weird.
It is very weird, but from what I understand, the reason they can't close the liquor store is because they would have so many mental health issues with people not getting their alcohol, which is a very sad statement in our society. But it goes to show you how
it's much better to let them numb themselves down and be quiet.
Yeah, but there's also addiction. Like, and they didn't want to deal with the withdrawal period of this, and maybe violence, whatever came up, which is, it's just like, again, our reliance on alcohol. Like, so many people, when I'm doing nutritional counseling, will say, I just don't ask me to do anything except give up my glass of wine every night. I can't do that. And, that is where, we need to work with society and finding other ways, like you say, to, like, A, deal with things instead of numbing them down, and B, find other ways to deal with stress and tension. Like, we're just not dealing with that properly. So, absolutely. So that's where we got to go. So the solution is to slowly withdraw. Like, I remember when I was weaning my kids from the bottle or whatever I was doing. Like, some people just do cold turkey, but I'm like, okay, let's take it down a little bit, or water it down, or take it down every time. And I think that could be a good solution for a lot of people. Just go less and less, and if you can just drop the alcohol out of your life, it will make your life so much better. From so many different ways. So I think that is a good thing.
Yeah.
Any other last
simple things in the kitchen? If you have, why do people eat the junkier food? Because it's already pre-made, it's ready to eat.
Right.
So you're gonna have to prep food anyway. Why not prep a little bit more, or a specific time, so you've got ready to eat all sorts of vegetables.
Right.
Any sort of good stuff. Right. Don't make it difficult. Don't make it a 3-step process to have a piece of celery. Mm-hmm. Make it as easy as having a cookie out of a package. Well, just reach in for that piece of celery. It's already washed. It's already cut down to your serving size that you prefer. Make it easy.
One tip that I've been offering a lot of my clients who are trying to lose weight is to eat 10 almonds before every meal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that fat, it's that, there's lots of research saying that people who eat nuts weigh less. It's satiating. You feel like you've had a little snack, you get the crunch.
Yeah.
And then when you go to eat, you find that you just will not need to, eat. And of course, we have this tendency. I actually had a client yesterday just say, I like to eat till I feel like really full. Then I feel good. That's our habit, right? And I'm saying, yeah, why not eat until just before that part? Like just when you're feel good, but you're not over the top. And push yourself away from the table. Take smaller portions, maybe. Use smaller plates, because these plates have gotten bigger and bigger, as you know. Our serving platters are huge now. So let's go smaller, and that could be another good way. And drink water before your meal.
Mm-hmm.
Not with it, because it doesn't help with digestion. It dilutes your stomach acids. But having a glass of water or bone broth before a meal can also make you feel full.
Mm-hmm.
And make sure you have enough protein and healthy fats in your diet so that you're not hungry all the time. I am a big proponent of 3 meals a day with no snacks in between.
Mm-hmm.
I know a lot of other people like to graze during the day, but for most people, it just doesn't ever give your body a rest. It doesn't allow your body to digest. It's kind of like the intermittent fasting, but even during the day, like just constantly feeding your body puts it under constant stress. So that's my sort of advice usually to people.
Yeah, and I think that's good. I find so for me, for my work day, because I don't usually lay out any sort of lunch time. I'm usually on breakfast at home, plus there's usually 3, maybe 4 small grazings. Mm-hmm. Outside of my work day, it's breakfast, usually lunch, and dinner, and that's it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And not a lot in between. Yeah, a lot of water, a lot of tea. And
again, the grazing, it takes pre-planning, because you're gonna graze on. One of my clients was eating like 3 or 4 protein bars a day, and he didn't realize the calorie count on the protein bars, right? So, some protein bars read the label, people. Yeah, read the label, because not only are ingredients an issue in protein bars, but also sometimes it's half a bar is 250 calories, not the whole bar. They trick you that way. Yeah. And so, he was eating 3 of these bars a day, and they were 500 calories a day. Well, that's 1,500 calories in protein bars, and that to him was a snack. Then he's still eating his meal. Yep. So we have to be careful about planning your grazing. Like I say, some nuts and seeds, some celery or cut up vegetables, carrot sticks, that type of thing. Fruit. What else are good healthy snacks? Maybe, half a piece of chicken that you had left over from yesterday, or even a whole chicken breast or something like that. When I'm really feeling I need something, I'll just eat. By the way, and when I recommend meat, it's always organic, grass-fed, healthy meat. So I also have like a protein, because I just know that I have a rest of a busy day. Yeah, very good. So so I think we've kind of covered the physical side. So. If we summed it up, we'd say move a little more. Move a lot more. A lot more. Move a lot more. Eat a little less. Eat a little less. But eat a little better. Yes. Replace your alcohol with water. Yes. And those are probably like the 3 biggest things you can do. Or nice herbal tea. Yep. I mean, or mushroom tea or something like that. Some kind of good healthy tea that you could do. Okay. So let's end that there. We'll end today's session. You'll find that I have other videos on YouTube, conversations with Susanne, free yoga classes, and you can reach Brian if you need chiropractic, regular or neurological, at Dr. Brian Smuck, Chiropractic and Wellness. And thank you so much for listening to us. Namaste.